I want to introduce our next panelist. This is going to be the title Attraction and Retention Strategies. This is going to be led by Anthony Lawley from the CEO Ivey Group. Anthony brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in strategies at a municipal and business level. Anthony, without further ado, I turn it over to you.
Appreciate that, Ricardo. Thank you very much. And Brady, great presentation. I'm glad that you brought that into perspective for us. Are you hearing an echo? Or maybe it's okay now.
Someone unmuted themselves, but now it should be good to go.
Okay, excellent. That's good. Yeah, so really happy to be here. Honestly, I think this is we've had some great conversations over the past couple of months related to some of the struggles that are happening in Alberta. Myself personally, in Ivey Group, we're located in Ontario. We're actually born and raised. I am in a rural community up in Northern Ontario, a little place called Timmins. And I actually grew up in South Porcupine, which is just outside of Timmins, so even smaller. Took a real big interest. My background's in human resources, studied business, worked in manufacturing for a long time, and really struggled to keep up with the requirements of the business. And my role as HR manager was to make sure the mill didn't shut down because of lack of people, and it was a struggle, trust me. And that led me to study the future demographics of Canada. And this is probably pushing 8 to 10 years ago, where I took a real big interest in understanding what does the future of the labor market look like across Canada, not just in rural or urban areas, but where will we be? And similar to Brady, I have 3 out of my 4 grandparents immigrated to Canada, one from Italy, England, and Czechoslovakia. So immigration was close to me, and I quickly found out that the future of our labor market is immigration. It's not an opinion anymore. It's a fact. There are so many studies out there. It's become a lot more mainstream than it was when I first started, studying this, because I really did. I took a real big interest. And, I transitioned out of HR. I became licensed to practice immigration law in Canada. So I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. Started Ivey Group 4 years ago now with my business partner, Antonio Lopez, who's a mechatronics engineer from Mexico. And we just started doing what we're doing today. And I'd like to share a little bit about what we do, and then get into more, what has been successful or what has contributed to the success that we have, not only as a company, but in the integration. First of all, the attraction, then the integration, and the retention of newcomers being the workers that we're bringing to Canada for businesses across Ontario and Quebec. Brief overview of Ivey Group, 3 kind of pillars of our business. We operate in corporate immigration, international recruitment, and integration. All of these things really work closely together. So primary part of our business, 95% of it, is employers call us, say, hey, Anthony, we can't find workers. We need your help. We don't know where to find them. We don't know how to get them here. We don't know how to integrate them. We need your help to do everything. That's what we do. So we operate in a lot of different countries, South America, Eastern Europe, parts of Africa as well for our Francophone clients in Quebec. And it's full cycle recruitment, selection, immigration, and integration. And this sphere on the right here, at the start of Ivey, didn't really understand fully the importance of that part of what we do. But we have a full team here at Ivey Group that focuses on just that, making sure that people, and we term it as community and workplace integration, but make sure that the communities, first of all, are ready. The employers absolutely need to be ready, and that the candidates or the workers that are coming have some level of preparation before they land. What's life like in Canada? It's different from where they're coming from. It doesn't matter if it's Mexico, Colombia, or Ukraine, or Madagascar, or Tunisia, Morocco. It doesn't matter. Life will be different. There will be challenges. So, our company works to prepare the workers before they come here, but also the workplaces and through discussions with the communities. And, a big part of the community relationships is, I'm actually a member of the Greater Sudbury Economic Development Corporation. And, we started conversations about an attraction strategy probably a year and a half ago now. And how do we do it? And I volunteered to be on the board because I want to be involved in those things, because it's really important for me to contribute to the economic development of smaller communities across Canada. Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver don't really need help, I'll be honest. They have what they have to attract new people, but I really believe in the rural and urban parts of our country. I think they have so much to offer. There's so many benefits. And it's really become a passion of mine and a passion of ours at Ivey Group. So these are some of the questions when we're sitting down with the different representatives from the communities, whether it be the economic development, the mayors, the chambers of commerce, the settlement service providers. You know, are these some of the things that you're experiencing? And I'm sure a lot of you don't have your cameras on, but I'm sure you're nodding yes, yes, yes to all of these questions. Difficult to find workers. Employers are probably calling saying, hey, you know, counselors or what have you, I can't find workers, I need help. Can you influence government to change policy or to implement programs such as RNIP or the RNIP that Brady alluded to earlier to make this work? And, you know, in Northern Ontario, there's actually 5 communities that were selected for the RNIP. And we work in all of those communities, and there's great benefits to, you know, partnerships with government and community to help attract newcomers to at least consider your community before the default of, okay, I want to move to Ontario, I'm going to Toronto. Or I want to move to Alberta, so I'm going to Edmonton, for example. So this is really, really important. And, you know, a lot of these things from a pure community economic perspective, obviously lower population, and we've seen significant decreases in urban parts and urban communities across Canada, which leads to lower tax base, which leads to lower investment in services, in roads, in hospitals, and hockey arenas, and community centers, and all these other things. And, you know, people don't really see it necessarily from a business perspective like that, but it's true. Economic or immigration not only has, you know, the soft benefits like Brady was alluding to, where it's diversifying your community and really, you know, changing the face literally of who you are as a community, and the different types of, you know, cultures that can integrate to influence language or influence religion or influence the type of restaurants that open up. But there's also really strong economic benefits to immigration for a community. You know, and we see it. We see it. We hear it from the communities we operate in, where population, I'll give you an example, in Northeastern Ontario, decreased by 20% in 10 years. So huge problem. And you know, it's really having an impact on attracting investment. You know, a lot of the mayors that we've spoken to are alluding to, well, how do we attract business here? We want people to buy property and build buildings and employ people so we can, you know, attract them. But a lot of the things that we're hearing now are, you know, the issue, or why people don't want to, you know, start businesses or transfer their factories or whatever to communities, because there's no access to labor, there's no access to people. So immigration has a direct impact on economic development, economic prosperity of each and every one of our communities. And the communities that are proactive in understanding these things and going out into the marketplace and talking to people and talking to, you know, if it's government institutions or organizations or non-for-profits or for-profit businesses, to build strategies to make this work, it really secures the sustainability of your community. And again, I can talk about this for hours because I really, really am passionate about this subject, but I do want to keep it short because we're a little bit behind schedule. I know we want to save some time for Q&A as well, so I will continue. But if you have questions on this, I'd be more than happy to answer them. So what brought us where we are today? Canada has an aging population, declining birth rate. We had, when I started looking at this stuff, I think we were at like 1.74 babies per couple. Today we're at 1.5. It keeps going down. People are not having children, maybe because, you know, the policies we have in place related to childcare. I know that the government is doing some work on that now, but whatever the reason is, it's a fact, right? So we have 2 problems in Canada. We have a labor shortage, meaning we just don't have enough people. And the second is a skills gap, which is there are some people that are unemployed. We do have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the last 40 years pre-COVID, but we're starting to see it again as more and more people get employed. So people that aren't working, they don't have the skill sets that the employers are looking for. So yes, there's opportunities for retraining, second careers, all of these other things. But the reality is the employers need specific skill sets that they just can't find. So it's causing some major issues. Another fact that I thought was pretty interesting when I read it was by 2034, if Canada completely closed their borders, zero immigration, our population will decrease without immigration. We will have more people dying than being born. Obviously, that doesn't fit well with, you know, our federal plans for our growth and GDP and everything else. It just doesn't work, right? We've seen it. We have government representatives on the at the webinar today. The government is in support of immigration. I mean, our plan is 1.2 million immigrants. This is actually a little bit outdated because it has been updated since. But the point being, the government understands, and they're putting in things to help facilitate entry. It's not perfect. It's still, pretty bureaucratic with a lot of the different programs that exist. However, there's progress, which is good to see. All right. So any initiative like this, we talk about three things. First of all, you need to attract people. You have to get them excited about your community. I think we all understand this. And the question is, well, how do we do it? I get it. And I'm going to talk about some things in a second. The third thing, or the second thing is once they've attracted, they have an interest. How do we integrate them? How do we get these newcomers into our communities, settled, integrated, feeling welcome? And the third thing is, fine, they're here. We've attracted them. They're already here. How do we keep them here? How do we motivate them to stay? And we have a lot of conversations with communities that have, post-secondary institution, college or university. It was alluded to earlier. I think it was Ricardo or maybe somebody else, about international students. They've been attracted. They've been integrated. They're here. They're in school for 1 to 3 to 4 years. But oftentimes we see they don't stay. And so how do we get better at the retention part of it, so that people aren't only attracted and integrated, but now they stay for the long term? They establish themselves and their families and their friends, and they ask them to come, and you create these communities, right? And I know they're big questions, and again, we can talk about this for a long time, but I'm going to go through a couple high-level things that I've shared with Jennifer and others in preparation for today, and we'll go through it. So, first thing on attraction is marketing. Okay, this is marketing 101. You need people to know who you are and that you exist. People aren't searching for, at least it won't come up on Google, for Grand Prairie or for other small communities in the area. They just don't do it. So you need to, and if they do, and there's no information available to them to understand more, like videos on social media or what have you, then, kind of their journey stops. So it's about marketing. And to be able to market correctly, you need to know yourself and you need to understand your community. And what are the things that differentiate yourself? And I have that as the last bullet there. What makes you different? Because we have competition, okay? Brady talked about his community, and he's super proud, and he should be, based on what I saw in the video and the presentation. But guess what? There's several other, I think there's 10 other communities across Canada that also have the RNIP program. There's the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program. So one of the attraction pieces or the marketing that these communities are doing is like, hey, if you come here, you have an opportunity to become a permanent resident. Well, guess what? There's more communities now than there ever was that are able to offer those recommendations for permanent residency. So people outside of Canada can compare. So there is competition, and we have to be creative sometimes, where it's like, hey, well, I don't have a Costco, I don't have a Home Depot, I don't have, a massive community center, I don't have like a mosque where people can go and worship, or you don't have these things, but what else do you offer? And when we're talking to people and we're promoting and marketing not only the businesses or which are our clients or the employers, but the communities, a lot of things come back to the basics: cost of living, quality of life. Now, there's so many things that are part of those two definitions, or those two items, but you need to be able to quantify them, explain them, and sell them. And that's really what's going to allow you to attract the right people to your communities. And, the third item here, know your audience. And this is something that I spoke to about Jennifer and her group was, there's a lot of questions. Well, how do we do it? How do we do it? And I don't want to take a typical, political or legal, no offense to anybody, answer, but it depends. It really does. Who is your audience? Are you looking to attract healthcare professionals? People like doctors or dentists or what have you, with families and maybe potentially young families that have a different lifestyle or different wants or needs? Are you looking to attract tradespeople? Maybe a little less education, more basic needs or requirements or different interests? Or are you looking to attract entrepreneurs, people to buy businesses that may be for sale in your community, or to start new business because you have a really aggressive plan for, land purchase or development, where you're giving tax credits for no property taxes for the first 3 to 5 years or something, or giving away land for super cheap so people develop it. Well, what does your community need to have in order to attract these type of individuals? So those are things that you need to think about: is who's your audience? Who are you trying to attract? What gets them motivated? What gets them excited? And what will satisfy their needs? And hit on those things and promote those things and do videos on those things and get testimonials from, people in the community or newcomers that were there that integrated and were successful. And I know a lot of you on the call today are doing that already. I've seen some things that are out there on social media or on your the website pages for your cities, and those are all really, really great things. And we spend a lot of time outside of Canada, a lot of different countries with a lot of different religions or backgrounds or people that want to buy businesses or simply work or study, and they're all motivated different, and they all have different questions, and that's what guides their decision-making process. So it's really important to understand these things when you're looking at attraction initiatives. The second thing is on integration. So now they're excited. They're like, yes, they've chosen you. They've chosen your community. Like, that's exactly where I want to live. You sold me on your videos, on the testimonials, on the employment opportunities, on the opportunities for my children to go to a great school. I want to come. That's where I want to live. So the next part of it is, and I'll start with the third point because it's the most important, is how do you, and IRCC is even using these terms when they're speaking with communities about the RNIP. So Brady will probably be familiar with this, is, how do you offer a community/employer hug where you're welcoming people and you're making them feel excited, and the journey is not even close to being over once they've attracted and they've agreed to move to your community. It's just starting, right? And this is the most important part of any of it, is making people feel welcome when they arrive to your community. And in order to do that, you need to have the right services and the service providers. And this could be volunteers, it could be community organizations, it could be government settlement services, it could be private organizations too, right? But you need to identify what are the things that are important, and how do you explain those things to the newcomers, and how do you get them on board and integrated. And I relate this back to my HR career where, we call this onboarding, not integration. But when we had new employees starting with the company, how do we make them feel welcome? We would send them a box of swag of the company before they'd start and get them excited, and have like a t-shirt or a toque or a hat or gloves or whatever, or a coffee mug or whatever it is. So people already start to feel an attachment to your community. Community leadership, crucially important. We have a lot of newcomers and workers that are coming into smaller communities. Guess what? It's an honor for them to meet the mayor, this political figure, person who runs the city. And we organize these meet and greets, we call them. And the workers are honored to be able to have that opportunity. And it shows the importance of, hey, you know what? Welcome to my community. If there's counselors or there's other people from staff, I think it's so important. And it's really thinking of these little things that, for us, it's not a big deal. But for them, it's really, really important. And it's understanding the cultures and the things that are important for them, so that they do feel welcome and they do have this community hug. And also, and on the flip side of this is with the employers. I mean, they have a huge, huge role to play in integrating them into the workplace and also supporting them in the community. The final thing is really on retention. So as I mentioned, we've attracted them, we've marketed to them, we've hit all the spots that get them excited. They're here. We've given them a huge community hug. Everything's all excited. It's not, the first couple of weeks when you're first dating, there's butterflies in the stomach. Everyone's happy and excited. How do you keep that feeling? How do you keep that excitement? How do you keep people engaged in the community, right? It comes down to the ability to plant roots. People are not usually easily influenced to pack up their family and their whole life and move to a new place. So how do you establish roots so that people get involved in the community? And it's not just their work. Obviously, that's a big tie because they have good employment and they like their coworkers and everything else. But it's way more than that. And what we've been seeing in the communities that have had great success is to get them rooted in the community, you need to focus on things outside of work, which is, a lot of it comes down to family. If there's children that make friends, if there's children that have, relationships with their school teachers, if they're volunteering at religious or places of worship and they have communities there, that sense of community is so important. And honestly, it's invaluable. And, you know, what was mentioned earlier about bringing, you know, 5 Afghan families, for example, to one community, that will lead to high levels of retention, because they're not alone anymore. They have a sounding board. They have people that they can relate to and they can talk to that are going through the same things that they're going through. And that's what we do. There's some employers like, yeah, I need one machinist, for example, or I need one, you know, mechanic or whatever. Well, we don't really do that if there's not already newcomers there. It's, you know, at least 2 families so that they can learn together. You know, we're always there to support them, and we give a lot of good tips to the employers and to the communities also. But you know, they want to be able to have common ground with somebody and be able to, like I said, you have a sounding board and be like, hey, I'm going through this. What are your thoughts? So that's all I have for the presentation now. I am open to questions if we have time. I know that was kind of the intention, but I'll leave it at that for now. So Ricardo, I will pass it back to you. Thank you.
Anthony, thank you so much for those insights. What we're going to do is we're going to have a collective Q&A after all the presentations. So Anthony, I just wanted to highlight again, you know, what you said and how well it kept weaving the thread of what we've been hearing so far this morning. Community readiness, the need for immigration, like this is a reality given our population and our declining population, the economic being the driver. We talked about attracting the right people, and I think how critical that is. And as we address the economics of it, we also, you know, start to contemplate the real life people side of it, you know, the families, because that becomes the lifeblood of any community. And particularly resonated with me is finding that attachment to a community. That bodes well when we talk about finding a sense of belonging to a place. So thank you, Anthony. We'll move to our next panelist, which is going to be best practices for hiring and welcoming international employees, an employer perspective. I'd like to introduce Robert Brouillette, owner and president of City Welding, Sudbury, and business development and technical specialist consultant for the Ivey Group. Before Robert comes on, I want to again remind people, if you do have some questions, please post your questions in the chat box, and we'll save a period of time after this presentation to address questions you may have for the panelists. Robert, over to you.
Yes, well, good afternoon for myself. I'm in Sudbury, Ontario, similar to Anthony. So I firstly want to thank Jennifer Ma. We've been talking for the past year, I believe, as a result of a conference, Pathways to Prosperity, I believe it was, that I spoke to presentation on a similar topic back a year ago, around this time. So thank you for having me as well, Ricardo, and CCIS. So thank you for allowing me to share a bit of my story. So I'm actually a lawyer by profession. So I practiced law here in Sudbury for 10 years. From 97 to 2006, and I currently own and operate the family business that my parents started. Will be 50 years now, come February of next year. So when I first came to the business in 2006, my father was already experiencing a significant challenge of hiring and attracting skilled trades, primarily welders, welder fitters, press brake operators, millwrights, industrial painters, draftspersons, and the list goes on. So back in 2007, the first file that found its way on my desk was my father, and somebody had reached out to him with respect to bringing in some foreign workers. So with my legal background, the file found itself on my desk. And so I started to basically tripping my way through, you know, the process. And since 2007, we've had a number of foreign workers. We currently have foreign workers from Romania, Tunisia, Philippines, Mexico, Morocco, India, who are presently working for us now. We're about 37 employees, and they make up about, well, some of those employees are now permanent residents, and some of them are actually Canadian citizens. And I was fortunate enough to be invited by 2 of those employees who became Canadian citizens. And it was, I can tell you, one of the most moving experiences I've ever had personally with regards to attending one of those swearing in ceremonies. It's really something else, and probably one of the big reasons why I'm so passionate about the help that we've been able to receive through skilled workers from a variety of different countries. So for us, it's been, when I first started in 2007, it was really, I was the unicorn more or less in regards to certainly in rural communities and up north here. I think down in Southern Ontario, Toronto and MTV, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver was already mainstream, but Anthony mentioned that it's now mainstream and has been probably for the last couple of years anyways. For me, it's been on my radar since 2007. It's actually, I would say, my number one recruiting strategy currently. I also sit on several boards for apprenticeship programs here in our area. Very involved with the local high schools and the 2 local French and English colleges. We have bursaries for the trades there. And it's simply in Sudbury here, the challenge that we really have is we have 2 main employers are mines, nickel mines, and we have more custom steel fabrication companies than we have Tim Hortons. And I think at last count, we had 27 Tim Hortons. So I think we're somewhere around 40 welding facilities or companies that are similar to ours. So attracting and retaining, especially when the mines are paying significantly higher nickel bonus and that kind of stuff to compete with them. So for us, bringing in temporary foreign workers, number one, they're skilled. Number 2, they're motivated. Number 3, as a temporary foreign worker, we have the benefit of employing them on a closed work permit, which allows us the opportunity to sell ourselves. And I can say with, with quite pride that we've been able to retain at a minimum 7, 8, 9, 10 years every employee, every temporary foreign worker that we've brought from any country. A few of them haven't worked out for a variety of reasons. And the challenge on the skill side is you're bringing in people from outside where you're not able to test them, or your interview process is either online or by way of resume or by way of reference. I actually there's an initiative back in 2010, 2011 by, it's called Destination Canada. So I was fortunate enough with the assistance and the help of our federal government to partake in a job fair in Paris, Brussels, and Tunisia. And in Tunisia, I really found a little bit of a niche there because their second language is French. They allowed me to set up some physical welding tests, much like I would do in my own facility. So I interviewed over the span of, I think, 4 days or 2.5 days, somewhere around 60, 70 candidates for welders, welder fitters, and press brake operators. And I was, so that was as part of the initiative with Immigration Canada. But I also, in 2018, on my own initiative, traveled to Morocco on my own for 8 days and interviewed a number of candidates out there. And happy to say that we hired 4 candidates as a result of those recruiting efforts. And now we've just welcomed 2 other candidates as a result. So those that we recruited when I was there in 2018, that's what's so cool about the process is now that we've recruited some from, for example, Morocco, that makes my search a lot easier. I don't necessarily have to return to Morocco because the candidates that we hired are now also referring people here. So as we continue to grow as an organization, it allows us, the ability, and that it goes to what Bradley and Anthony, our Brady and Anthony mentioned, and Ricardo about, get the ball rolling, and the more people you have involved or in the local community, the chance of retention and success are a lot greater. For us, it's really been the retention piece for us. I think what's really benefited us well is I'm completely involved in as an employer, and I've helped since 2007, probably another 15 or so businesses in our area recruit and hire temporary foreign workers. As I said, I've been more or less the sounding board up until Anthony and Ivey groups settled in Sudbury, where people would turn to. The retention piece, I think for us, why we've been so successful is as an employer, it takes a period of time to get them over here to do all the immigration paperwork. But, I read a quote from his forget where I read it, but culture, you know, it's something that you nurture, and that's never been more so evident with regards to our temporary foreign workers. The second we select them, I'm on WhatsApp. I continue to send them pictures of the business. I'll send them some health and safety manuals. And they essentially, I include them, or we include them as basically an employee from day one. From the second we send them an offer, we engage with them, find out about their families. Family from Morocco that's been here 2 years. The one family the candidate came with his wife and 2 children, and we had them integrated into the school system within 3 days. He and his wife had their driver's license within 3 weeks, and the only reason is it took that long to get an appointment to have them secure their Canadian driver's license, set them up with a bank account, social insurance number, cell phone, and everything to get them integrated as quickly as possible into our community. The city of Sudbury has really done some great strides with the help of Anthony and his group with regards to preparing the community for, and I think it's a big piece. Unfortunately, when I first started out in 2007, there was not much to speak of, and the resources that were available, I just wasn't aware of them. There wasn't, you know, it wasn't mainstream like it is today. So I'm really happy to see all the improvements and from the federal government. So it takes a lot of, you know, hard work and a lot of people pulling in the same direction to make that happen. Personally, I'm still waiting on another candidate from Morocco. So I'd like the bureaucratic or the paperwork to be a little quicker, but it's not a quick fix. What people have to understand, this process, it has to be a strategy. It's not a quick fix. You know, to find somebody today or tomorrow is certainly not going to happen. And it's like building a house. So you got to build a good foundation. You got to make sure you're ready. You got to make sure your employees are ready. And, you know, people asked me earlier on, now it's not even a question, but, you know, how do your Canadian workforce adapt to the foreign workers coming in? And initially we had, you know, 3-4 candidates from Romania. And I recall this story distinctly. I happened to walk into the lunchroom and 2 of our supervisors were having lunch, and, you know, they were kind of venting a bit, you know, and language has always been the number one challenge. Everything else has been extremely manageable. And I've learned from that. And, you know, we support the candidates coming with the Rosetta Stone, some type of learning app to learn English. But I walked into the lunchroom and the 2 supervisors were, you know, they're hard to understand, and the one's a little stubborn. And so they were venting, and I can certainly appreciate where they were coming from. And I said, you know what, I apologize. It's my responsibility. At that time, I was the general manager to ensure we have the right people and good skilled people. And, you know, it's just a real big challenge. And that was in 2007. And I said, but, you know, the funny thing is, I said, we all have shortcomings. I said, they're here every day. They're highly skilled. They work every shift of overtime that we've ever asked them to work. And I said, you know, unfortunately, I have my shortcomings. We're going to talk about my shortcomings next. But once we're done with my shortcomings, we're going to address your shortcomings as well. So that, you know, once I got done my shortcomings, there was a pause, and the 2 supervisors looked at their watch and like, oh my God, lunch is over. And they immediately proceeded back into the shop area. So it was, I think it just happened that way. But I think from that point on, it was really, you know, saw the value, even the staff here. But, you know, it took some work on behalf of the employer to you know, it doesn't happen by osmosis. Something you have to cultivate. And I'm brutal with certain employers here who, you know, they'll spend thousands upon millions of dollars on a piece of equipment. And then, you know, when the efforts are required to find the right person or add people, they're like, oh, you know, it takes too much time or it costs too much money. And I'm like, you know what, you just don't get it. So the last story I'd like to share, I know we're running behind a little bit, is so recently in the last, we had an engineer come in from Mexico. We had 2 draftsmen from India. We have from Morocco. And one of the greatest accomplishments for me is, so this summer, and none of these individuals knew each other, and, you know, someone who's Canadian as well. So there's about 5 or 6 of them that go for a walk at lunchtime. nothing that I've promoted or, but I think we as a business made it welcoming for people of diverse backgrounds to be a part of the company. And I remember driving one day and going home, and I get a little bit emotional about this because, like I said, it's something that's it just strikes me to the core. A lot of the same passion that Anthony has with his group, and to see someone from Mexico, someone from India, someone from Morocco, and someone from Canada, all having a great time and walking for lunch. The only thing I didn't like is they're all walking on the same side of the road together at the same time. So if there was ever an erratic driver, I asked them to split themselves up a little bit so that in the event that something tragic happened, that they would not all get injured. So it was, but to see that they continue, and they've had potluck dinners where they've brought some of the different cultures and some of their different foods and to share with the rest of the employees. I hope that everyone gets to experience that. It's like I said, it's just been incredible, to the point where if I had not created the strategy, I don't know if I would have bought the business for my parents in 2015. My mom and dad started it from the garage at home down the street. But like I said, I'm much better person, a much better leader for having experienced them and understanding and appreciating what their culture is and where they're coming from. As a matter of fact, me traveling to Morocco was a big thing. So my contact information at the company is called City Welding Sudbury. My contact address or my email address is listed there under contact us. If anybody's interested, I used to answer the phone for drunk criminals when I was practicing law at 4 in the morning. I'll certainly take an email or a phone call with regards to someone that has any questions with regards to best practices from an employer's perspective. And I want to thank you all for listening and allowing me to share some of our success with it. It's certainly been the greatest success with regards to strategy to be able to grow, maintain and grow our operations. So thank you for having me.
Oh, Anthony, thank you. Thank you so much for your stories, your words of wisdom, but more importantly, what you highlighted that each and every employer should have is this ethical principle, is very principle centered. The need of meeting newcomers as to where they're at, engaging with newcomers, offering supports, preparing the community. The humanity, the compassion, and this return on investment for employers. They should see that the biggest return on their investment is people. And you have epitomized what I think all employers should have. The best strategy is the people strategy. You invest in people, you will get a return on your investment. And I've been trying to share some of that, folks, is that people coming from different countries, especially collectivist cultures, there's a high saliency on loyalty. And sometimes it's not always about the money, it's about how they treat it and how they meant to feel. And you certainly in your stories shed lights on that.